Moving into our OL Reign to finish off the day here, the Reign made several signings official, similar to the Sounders. Some re-signings, though, and some of their draft signings were made official. As we look over here, the Reign signed defender Phoebe McLaren through the 2023 season, a 2-year deal with a 1-year club option. Team re-signed forward Ziara King through the 2023 season. The team signed the 8th overall pick in this year's draft, Zani Kajan, for the 2022 season with a team option for the 2023 year. The team signed undrafted free agent UCLA midfielder Olivia Athens to a 1-year deal with a 1-year club option for 2023. Probably the biggest of them all being the team signing midfielder and NWSL MVP last season, Jess Fishlock, to a 2-year deal with a 1-year club option, keeping the Reign original here in Seattle. They signed goalkeepers Laurel Ivory and Claudia Dickey to the 2022 season with club options for 2023 for the both of them. So I know that with the Sounders, we looked at it, and you think this has to be, I said it several times. They're the team that I have the most confidence in making it to a title, being a title contender. With the Reign, this is a team that was a resilient group. They were at the bottom of the table earlier on in the first, I'd say, third of the season, and then shot up all the way to second, just barely missing out on finishing at the top to Portland, your rivals that you beat twice this year. And I don't think you lost them. I think you drew, but you beat them twice. So yeah, going undefeated against the number 1 team in the league is no small feat. So to have the talent that you do on this roster in Megan Rapinoe and Rose Lavelle and Jess Fishlock, just those 3 names at the top are, names that people will probably know the most. But, Bethany Balser being second in the league in goals scored and winning the Rookie of the Year in 2019, getting a good young draft class, get some midfielders in there. And you have to think that the parent club, the OL Olympic Lyon, who has loaned players to Seattle several times since their partnership began. Those are world-class players that joined that club. You have to think that'll happen at some point. I would have to imagine as well that Seattle is in the running. I wouldn't say I'm confident in that because this league is insane and there's so much that happens in the NWSL. But for them as well, I think for our 2 pro soccer clubs in this city, they're both probably the 2 clubs at the top of my list. Like if we're ranking them all, they're both at the top of who I think are going to be contenders this upcoming season. But it also, again, to go back to it, it depends on Stewie and Jewel Lloyd. Jewel Lloyd first, because the Storm would be right back up there. Because I think you get those 2. I don't care who else is on that roster. You're going to make the playoffs, I'd have to assume, at minimum, right? The Seahawks, a lot has to happen for that. The Mariners playoffs, I would say at least. The Kraken, not this year.
And the 2 teams at the top of your list have something kind of in common. Upon reading most of the signings here, a lot of the people wanted to come to the organization for the environment, the coaching staff, the arenas. It seems exciting that they can have such a cohesive and just grounded overall team with everything and drive people to want to come.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we talked about it, front office and just the organization as a whole. That's something that, I mean, you can't just kind of lollygag and just ignore. It's like, oh, we'll sign these great players and it'll work. That works sometimes, right? But if you want it to be something that continues year in and year out, like the Sounders, where they're always competitive, you have to start in the front office, and it has to be a culture that's made. Again, to go back to a Pete Carroll thing, culture and setting that up is something that's important. Like you were saying, with wanting to play in a world-class facility like Lumen Field, a club, a building that is hoping to host a World Cup game or few in 2026. Organizations that, in several of the players that I've talked to from those organizations, they do things right. In the interviews that you see, even if it's not me, they talk about the organizations in a positive life, like with Nico Benezet, who is not joining the Sounders next season, but only spent like part of last year. He said, "I'll always be a Sounder." always, and even guys that have played with Portland and they've played here, they'll say, I'll always be a Sounder, and it's Laura Harvey, the coach of the Reign, said it just feels like home. It's how they build things. And it's a good thing that you touched on that, because, you want to be a place that people want to be. You don't want to be, I don't want to throw any city under the bus, so I'm not going to pick one, but you just, I don't want to go to that organization just because I've heard how they run things. I don't want to go to that market because it's not going to make me, it's not somewhere I want to play, right? It's not the case here. And that's why, hopefully with the Storm, it's something that you're able to lock up Julie, you're able to lock up Stewie. And then with free agency, we'll say, look at these two players. Subrid's on a final ride. Do you want to be a part of that? If you need more convincing, look at the building we're playing in. So I would say it's a somewhat more positive week. In the past few weeks, kind of had some, losing and not sure about Jewel Lloyd and the Seahawks, and so MLB lockout. So I would say it's a somewhat more positive week. How do you reflect on the past week? I mean, you talked about the Kraken, and Davy Jones and all of that, and with Stewie. I mean, how do you reflect on things over the past week?
I think that things are just going to continue to go on an up curve here. I don't see, like you said, I don't see Stewie giving us bad news anytime soon. Crossing my fingers for that. And just looking forward to our pro soccer clubs and their season, the season that they're going to have.
Yeah, and luckily it's not like we have to wait several months for that. I know the Reign start preseason next, even on the 1st. They start, players have to report in on the 1st. But like I said, the Sounders, they start at the end of February. I know that the home opener for the Reign is in March, so we're getting there. We're getting there. The Storm, we have to wait, and that's fine. But we're getting there, and hopefully with the lockout, we'll get spring training and all that going. But this is always that time of the year where it's a little bit awkward because you don't know what's going on, and it's kind of quiet. But with the Kraken, I mean, at least the team on the ice is keeping us somewhat. There's something that's going on. So until we see what will that be? Will that be end of the month? Because we go to the 31st, so it'll be the end of the month that we see you next week. Until then, it's getting back cold again. Salman, again, as always.
Thank you.
Big thanks. He and I talked about it on the way in. It's getting cold again. So make sure you take care of yourself, stay warm. Bel and I and Salman, we'll see you next week. Take care. Be well. Enjoy yourself.